Hello and welcome back to Russ Plays Games. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I've set up my paint station, and we're going to finish doing our painted elf figure here. And after we get done with that, then I'll probably go ahead and work a little bit on our little barbarian figure here for the Hero Quest game. And I figure if we have time, I might do one of the other figures here, maybe the wizard or the Sir Ragnar figure. Haven't decided yet, so we'll just kind of play it by ear as we go along. Another thing that I've done is I brought over a piece of furniture from the Hero Quest game, and I might actually paint that today if I get the chance. So what I might do is when we kind of have a little bit of a break, what I might do is go and paint this guy black and then come back and we can sit down and kind of go through it a little bit. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get our figure done here. Now, what I'm going to do is I have this Seraphim Sepia. It's a shade from Citadel miniatures. You can make your own shades. If you go online, you click on various things, and you just kind of you can go out on YouTube. You can find a whole bunch of different things, and I just dumped my freaking guy in my lap. And you can basically go on there and you can say, like, I want to make my own shades. And you can find a whole bunch of different recipes and different things for making your own shades. As for me, I prefer the simple way of doing things, and that is, well, I just buy the Citadel shade. To me, it's just easier that way, and I don't have to worry about it too much. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of covering everything with the Seraphim Sepia. Now what I'm doing is I'm covering basically everything gold, brown, flesh colored. Basically everything that's not purple is going to get a wash of Seraphim Sepia. And I'm getting a little bit of it on the purple, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal because we can tidy up the purple a tiny bit later. Like I said, it's not that big of a deal. The biggest thing is you just need to kind of, you just want to get most of the hands, the arms, the gold parts, because that's going to be our biggest kind of a challenge here with this. And as you can see, I'm also getting his helmet and the face, because we want to kind of get to enhance that color a little bit. This is also going to kind of soften down our colors a tiny bit as well. It's going to make things a little bit easier to control. Now, once we get done with this step, I'm going to go back and kind of tidy up the purple a little bit, because I kind of got this in a couple places, and it probably shouldn't have been, but that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. So the biggest thing you want to do with this color is just kind of get it into all of those areas. And if you want, you can kind of color up the silver chainmail area a bit just to kind of give it a little bit of a dull coat kind of a thing. One thing you can do if you're so inclined, you can also get the bow itself just to kind of give it a little once over. There's not a whole lot that this thing has on it. There are a couple places here and there for the bow, so it's not that big of a deal, but I mean, it's just up to you however you choose to do it. So I'm going to set that up there. And okay. Now what I'm doing here is I put, when I did up here to get the little pauldron, it's hard to see, but I got a little bit up on his little sash that goes along the shoulder here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and I'm going to just kind of get a bit of this taken care of. Come on now. You're not helping. Get little strings every once in a while. They're just parts of the paint that tend to stick together. So it's not that big of a deal. Just get it under control. Keep on going. I have to wait for a couple minutes here for this stuff to dry. In my last video, I asked people to react to what they thought of casting of Christopher Walken. I did another video, which I actually just finished editing as I'm recording this video, where I kind of talk about the canonicity of certain books. Because I know in my last video I kind of chatted for a while on what I thought of Dune and some of the newer books and stuff like that, so I figured I should probably do something on the canonicity of the books so that people understood where I'm coming from. And that video should be out next day or so as if they're filming of this. So yeah, just also the guy that plays in the movie of Elvis, sort of a biopic of Elvis's life, Austin Butler, is playing Fade Rautha opposite Timothy Chalamet's Paul Atreides, so that will be an interesting casting choice as well. He does look a lot like Dave Bautista, who plays, of course, Fade Rautha, or sorry, Glotzer Raban, and so that should be interesting. to say the least, to figure that out. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're going to cover the cape and the purple areas with Druki Violet, okay? And this is a very, very strong, deep purple. So you want to be careful how much of it you use. But when you get done, you are going to be left with such a deep, recessed, purplish color that it is absolutely fascinating. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these in the recesses. So what we're doing here is we're not necessarily getting every single part of this. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to get this into folds. Okay? We want this into the folds because that's where it's going to do the most good. Okay? So wherever there's a fold in the fabric, you want this. Okay? Because that is going to allow it to really bring out the rest of it when we get to the highlighting stage, which is next. So we want to kind of color the cape because it's going to make it a little bit more purplish, but the biggest advantage is going to come when this is in the folds. Okay? That's where we're going to get the most use out of this. It needs to be in the folds. I know they announced who Irulan was played by, but I don't remember right off the bat who that was. It's my bad. Should know that. So now you can kind of see the advantages where here's the side with the folds done, and there's the side without. So you can really see how that highlights and deepens artificially the folds of the fabric. And that's why you want it in the folds, okay? Okay. So now begins the highlighting. So we're going to give it a minute on the purple. That one will be kind of the last one that we do. Okay? And so now comes the hard part. So one of the things that we can do, let me grab a couple different shades of gold. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one. This one's pure gold. This one's a little bit lighter in color. Okay, so you can definitely tell when it's on, when I put it on, that it will do what we're attempting to make it do. Now, I know before I was using the palette, but I have so much stuff kind of cluttered on the board that until this Let's Play is mostly finished, there's not much that I'm going to be able to do at the moment. So since I'm kind of sharing this space, it's going to be like I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do the Let's Play. So after I get done with this video, I'm likely going to move a lot of this stuff off, and then I will continue with the Let's Play. And then once we get done with a couple episodes of the Let's Play, and that's going to be a while because I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to use this, I'm going to have to do some other things. Then we will come back and we will actually, use this. We will actually do some more painting, and that's my goal. Is I'm going to switch back and forth between the two. Okay. Now, I didn't do the feet. I just didn't feel the need to. There's no reason, because they're very tiny, and I don't necessarily need to do it. But when we're doing highlighting, okay, you just want to get the very tippy tips. And what we're trying to accomplish here is we are looking to artificially highlight the very, very edges of things. Because what we are doing is we are separating the edge from the shadow. Redo the tip. This is where you're gonna need a good tip on your brush. When I get done with the helmet here, you'll kind of see where I've highlighted it. Okay? And all I'm doing is I am just creating the false impression of the gold. Okay? So I haven't quite, let me get, so on this side of the helmet, you can see where the highlight has been, and on this side of the helmet, on the plume, you can't see. But let me grab that highlight now, and that way you'll kind of understand it better. I'm just running along the very, very crest of it. And I'm keeping away from the smaller areas down below where there's a lot of the shade that has settled. And so, as you can see now, it's been artificially highlighted. Okay, so you can kind of see the separation between where the shade has settled in this triangular area underneath and then where the actual plume is up top. Okay, and so what we're going to do is, and this is the one that takes the most amount, and see, on this helmet, because there is a gap, okay, in the helmet, there's an actual hole, okay, you can kind of see because I can stick the brush through to the other side. See, I can stick the brush through. There's a hole in it, but on this one there is no hole. So where that shade, you want that shade to settle in that recess in there, okay? Because that brings an artificial highlight. So if you look at my hand, okay, you can see where the light hits up here on the top, and you can see where it's really dark down here, okay? And what we're doing is we're adding this artificial highlight while keeping this shadow deep. That's what the shade does. The shade creates this shadow, and we're putting the highlights here to artificially bring that out. So on the table, when you're playing the game, no matter what game it is, when you're playing it, you're looking and you're going, wow, that looks so real because the highlights and because the everything, okay? And so what we want to do is we want to, this is going to be the trickiest part because it's going to be the hardest one to show. But on these particular pauldrons that he has, you just want the very edges. And you don't want too much, you just want enough. And just on the edge. Okay, a good way to do it is to get a little bit on there, not too much. Okay, kind of use maybe one of your other pauldrons to take off a bit of it. And then you just want to kind of run it down like that. Almost like a dry brush, to where you're just catching the very tip edges. And what you'll find is that will give you that highlight without too much work. Okay? Now, I'm probably going to move on to some of the other highlights because they're going to take the longest, and I can always finish up the other highlights on this character. But let me just get on the front here. What you want to do is just like before, but because you can be a little bit more pronounced with it. We're just going to kind of run a line right along the front edge of it. Okay? Now, we don't want like a ton, but we do want enough of a line. There's a little bit of a separation between the two. Okay? Now, another technique that you can do with this, you also don't want to go all the way to where the bands meet. Okay? What you want to do, come on now. What you want to do is come back just a teensy bit from it. Okay? Now, another way to do this is if you if you go back with the original color, you can kind of use the color a tiny bit. But as you can, I think if you can see it on the front there, I didn't quite go all the way up. So let me kind of show you on this. So on this character, okay, you can kind of see where there's like bands of metal that like one comes this way and then another one emits from it and comes this way. Okay? And so they crisscross across the chest. Okay? And so what we're doing is we're starting just below about right there. Okay? It's hard to see. Let me get a nice point on this and I can kind of guide, because I don't want to have any paint on it because I don't want to mess up the figure. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to start right about there. Okay, and then we're going to come down and we're going to end just before it comes into the cloak. Okay, and so we're going to do that, and then on the top one we're going to do the same thing, but we can be a lot more latitude with it, because on this guy the top one is actually, there's a band where the quiver is held on to. Okay, it goes underneath and then it hooks behind. And so that one I've colored in sort of this moccasin brown color. Okay, and so what we're doing is we're just getting enough of it. Okay, and we're starting about maybe a millimeter or so away from the actual where the bands come across and meet in the chest. So if you look at it, we're starting at about, if this is where the cutoff was, we're going to start it right about here, and we're going to run it until we're just about to the part that goes underneath the sash. Okay, and we're going to end it just before we get to the sash, because that's going to artificially deepen those shadows. Okay, so we're going to have our highlight, but we're not going to get into the shadows of it. Okay, and that's all we're going to do all the way down, is we're just going to make it so that our line just kind of creates a little bit of an artificial lightning. Okay, so it looks like the light is just catching those edges. Okay, and as we get closer down to the bottom, we're just going to touch it very briefly, just like that, and that's it. And we're going to do the same thing on the ones below. But actually, I think what I'm going to do first is, let me put this away for a second. Let me grab this royal gold color one more time. Okay, because what we can do is, another way to do this is we take our original color, we can come back in and we can kind of highlight the gold to lighten it back up a little bit. Okay, and once again, we're not going all the way to the edges, and we're not going all the way up into the crease, because that would defeat the purpose. We've already done that when we base coated it. What we're doing now is we're just lightening this back up. Okay, just to kind of create a little bit of contrast, a little bit of lightness to the actual color itself. Okay? Because what we're trying to do here is we're going to kind of lighten this up just a tiny bit before we put the real light highlight on it. What you're going to find is that this is actually going to create a much smoother transition. Okay. It may or may not be possible on the other sides where there's less separation between the plates. And you can do as much or as little as you want. Again, this is your miniature. You do it how you see it when you're painting. Okay, my techniques may not be your techniques, but this method is more the way that they do it with the when they when they do some of these miniatures, like when you see them paint on like Warhammer TV or Duncan Rose Painting Academy or stuff like that, a lot of times they will create that artificial separation between that, and we're going to end up doing that on the cloak here in a minute. But I just wanted to kind of show, like, this is how you would do the other side of things, okay? Where we've lightened up that gold. You can kind of see versus here, we've kind of lightened it up a little bit. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to come back and we're just going to paint a very faint line at the very bottom. Just across, just enough to kind of show that artificial lightning. And you can make this line as long or as small as you want it. Okay? You can start it wherever, you can end it wherever, it really doesn't make a difference. The longer the line, the deeper the highlight. Okay? I'll be back in a second. We'll work on this cloak and then we'll do the chair because I wanted to kind of discuss some furniture for a little while. So I'm going to stop it here in just 1 second and then we'll continue from there. All right. And when I get back, I'll show you the highlights themselves. So, for me, it's going to be a little bit, but for you, it'll just take a little less than a second. And we're back. So, I went ahead and painted up the chair in black, and I kind of wanted to show off. This was the original Hero Quest fireplace. It was just a piece of brown plastic with a cardboard insert in it. The cardboard insert being just the fire and the actual stonework and stuff like that. I actually painted the bottom part of the fireplace, okay? to make it look, similar to the, similar to fire and stuff like that. Okay. This was the new fireplace molded from a piece of gray plastic. And as you can see, I had to do the whole entire fire. And one thing I missed when I did it before was I missed the scroll work up here on the mantle. But as you can see, I've actually gotten the fire to look much more like fire. That's a hard effect to achieve. Okay, I just kind of wanted to show that off. Now, you'll notice that there is a picture in this fireplace, and there's no picture in this one. That's because there was no picture that came with it. So I'm going to print a picture of something, and I'm going to put it in there. I don't know what yet. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Haven't decided, but there it is. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're going to come back with this regular Petunia purple. This is what I used as the base coat for the actual cloak. So as you can see with this cloak, we have, of course, we have the front garment, and then we have the rear garment. And the rear garment, the actual cloak itself, has more of a shimmery quality to it, and I'll get to that here in a minute. But basically, how we're going to do this, we're going to do this very similar to, well, how we've done other highlights in the past. Now, the highlight that I'm going for here, and this is something that, let me just clean that up just a tiny bit. Sorry, a little bit of some stuff. My hands kind of got in the way. Sorry about that. All right, so what we're gonna do is all along the tops of each of these, we're going to sort of come back over with this purple, and we're just going to kind of lighten it back up. Okay. Now the easiest one is going to be this one here on the front, because it's very easy to see where all of the folds are. Okay. And so wherever there's sort of a fold of a cloak or anything like that, knee, something along there, we're going to sort of artificially prop that up. Okay? What do I mean by that? I mean we're going to lighten it back up with our purple or Petunia purple color. Okay? Now, when it first goes on, this color is going to look very, very bright compared to the actual garment itself, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal. Okay? The trouble is going to come when we have to do things like that. Okay? You can kind of see where I've gotten each one of these little folds. Okay? And that's what you want to get. You have to get all those little teensy weensy folds. It is tedious as all hell. Okay? Come on now. You're being a little bit of a punk. when you get to the bottom, you kind of want to spread the paint out just a little bit, because that just kind of gives the impression of the gown kind of naturally flowing out, as it does. If you look at anything that folds or kind of has a little bit of a fold in it, when it gets to the bottom, it tends to kind of flare out a little bit. So you want that to stand out. And again, we're artificially doing this. Okay? This is what this step entails, the highlighting step, is we are actually going in and we are really going in and highlighting this, and we are brightening it back up to make it so that it's much brighter and more in catching the light kind of a thing. And again, we're doing this artificially because there's no real pattern to it. It's just kind of a, wherever the light sort of hits, this is where we're going to make this artificial pass. Okay? Now, on the inside of his knee, because he's sort of standing forward because he's got his bow out like this, so his front leg, his left leg, is going to be a little bit on the forward side. So what you're going to want to do with this is you're going to want to kind of run a little bit on the inside just like that, because you can kind of see where the folds are. And this is the advantage of having the this be the way it is you can actually kind of tell where the folds are. Okay? And so we want to highlight those, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in such a way that it makes it so that they stand out. Okay? Because then it's going to make those other folds that much deeper. Okay? And so as you can see, we've highlighted his folds compared to the back of his cloak that we haven't highlighted yet. Now, cloak is going to be a little bit of a different matter. Okay? With the center little knot and its related things, you don't have to do the whole thing. Best to do would be to just the best that I found is more of an edge highlight just up and down the main little part, and just get the knot in the middle, because it's just going to be easier that way. There's just not that much space that you can do that's going to look really good. And if you want it to, I mean, if you want to, you can spend as much time on this as you want. As Bob Ross would say, it's your world. You do how you do. But for me, because I'm kind of on a limited time frame and I don't want to sit here forever, I'm not going to do the whole thing. And I'm not even going to do much in terms around the belt. Just because, again, it's going to be tedious as all hell, and I don't really feel like doing all that much right now. But as you can see, on the front of that, we have actually highlighted just the little top where the tie, where the knot is tied right in the front, and then just the front of it as it comes down. Now, let's get the hood on the back. Okay? Now the hood is super simple. Okay? You can see where the folds are, and I'll use the other guy here in a minute just to kind of show you where the folds are located so that you can kind of see, and then I'm going to show you where I've highlighted, okay, to bring out more of that sort of deepening shadow of it. Again, we're looking more for the actual, looking at the folds. Okay. We want to highlight the tops of the folds. We want to leave the recesses. Okay. Again, that doesn't have to be perfect, but we do want those folds to have that sort of quality to them. Highlighted quality. So that's what we're looking for with the folds highlighted. You see how that lightens up that cloak? Okay. Now, now comes the hardest part. The actual robe itself. Up near the top, there's a ton of small little teensy-weensy tiny folds, and you can kind of see it here, okay? And the reason why I'm showing you on this is because it's going to be easier to show you on this before I show you on the actual model, because that one's going to be a little bit harder. But you can see up here where there's a bunch of tiny little teensy-weensy folds, okay? With those, we want to highlight them, okay, in such a way that we're not destroying the deep shadow at all. You don't want to touch that at all, because then it's another 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes to re-highlight or re-shadow, reshade, and then re-highlight all of that again. Okay? Believe me. Now on the edges of the cloak, we don't want to go too far back in, okay? Because again, we'll destroy the illusion of depth. Okay? It's a very fine line that you're going to walk. Because you want the cloak, you want the edge of the cloak to show up. Okay? But you don't want too much. Now, along the bottom of the cloak, you'll notice that I'm cleaning my brush a ton because I have to. Okay? On the bottom of the cloak, we just want to highlight the hems and just towards the, so we want to highlight the fold, we want to highlight the hem just towards the edges. Okay, we want to leave the deepest parts still in shadow. Okay, so we're not going to do the whole thing. And then of course we're going to come back up and we're going to highlight all the way down along the fold. Okay, and you want to kind of get on both sides of the fold a little bit. Okay, that kind of deepens that cloak shadow a little bit, and it kind of brings the highlight down to a fade. It's hard to accomplish, but if you just kind of spend a tiny bit of time on it, you can get it. It's not that hard. Okay, you just want it to kind of fade back. Okay, because we're doing this. So if you look at my shirt, okay, when I when I kind of hunch a little bit and you start to see the folds. So if you look at this fold, you'll see that there's a bright line across the top here, and then there's shadow over here. And what we're doing is we're creating this artificial highlight. Does that make sense? And then we're keeping this deepness, which we've enhanced with the shade. Okay? That's all it is. That's all it's ever been. Okay? Because we don't want to do too much with it. Okay? The more you do, the worse it gets. Okay? I'm washing my brush every once in a while because I'm getting the point back. There's a time when the point kind of gets destroyed, or there might be a little bit too much paint on it, and I'm not getting what I need. Okay, so that's a good time to just kind of wash your brush, take a minute, breathe, recenter, get everything ready, and then go back in and keep on working. Okay. And so we're looking for a highlight similar to that. Okay? And that's what we're going to do throughout the whole entire cloak, is we're just going to kind of get a little bit of paint. We're just going to kind of bring it up. And we're just going to kind of keep it nice and light. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is get this last little bit here so that we can get the best highlight for it. You're going to love this highlight. It's very, very beautiful. Okay. Alrighty. Because we're not going to go really crazy like that one, and we're not gonna make it like super sparkly, but we are going to make it sparkle, and it's going to look really, really good when it gets done. So there's a couple ways to do it. There's the dry brushing method, and then there's more of a hands-on, you just kind of throw it in method. It's the method I prefer. So I'm just getting this last little bit out of there. Just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Alright. So as you can see now, the cloak is highlighted. Might not be highlighted up to normal specifications, but I just wanted to get this done so that we can move on to the chair. So we can get the chair started, and then maybe on the next one we can get it finished. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to paint the gold. Whatever I want gold by. That's going to be our base. That's going to be our, similar to our hands and flesh colors. We normally do this stuff. Okay. So, we're going to take our amethyst. And Similar to our highlight, we are just going to highlight this color over the cloak. Okay. I don't know that I did this on the first one because I wasn't really paying attention. I think I more just kind of had it do that. But see, we want it to catch the light to be a little sparkly. Just kind of gives it an ethereal quality to it. Now, if you wish, because there's some red on here, you can actually do it with the red too, and make it, be so that it's got that ethereal shimmer to it as it moves, as it does things, okay? To kind of give it a more mystical quality. And you'll notice that I'm not painting the entire hem, I'm only painting certain things, okay? The parts that are really catching the light are the ones that I'm concerned the most about. I'm not too worried about trying to get every single aspect of the cloak like they did with the original miniature. Okay, we're just trying to get we just want this to be the mystical quality of it. Okay, that's all we're looking for, is just that mystical sheen to it. Okay, so we got a little bit of it up here, and got a little bit of it down here. And it doesn't have to be a ton. It's just enough to make it shimmer, because what you're catching is the metal flakes. Okay, almost like a dry brush. So when you end, you have just a little bit of a mystical shimmer that goes along with your character. See how that works? And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, paint the base it how you will, and you have an elf ready to go. Now, one of the other things that you can do is dry brush a little bit of red back on the fletching. You can kind of pick out the wood of the wood shaft. You could probably take something like this moccasin brown and just kind of highlight those wooden shafts just very, very easily, just to make them so that they seem to do that. If you wanted to, you could take a tiny bit of a gold, and you could paint that gold on the shaft just to make it. You can even paint it on the bow just to give it that little bit of a mystical shimmer, just like we did with the cloak. Alright, so in chairs like this, okay, if you've ever seen these chairs before, they have these little pads, and in the middle of the pads they have little, what they call furniture brads, and they're little gold buttons that go down deep inside, and it's where the fabric kind of, curls around it, so when you sit against it, the individual pads will support you better than just one pad over the whole entire thing. So what I'm going to do is, as carefully as I can, because I don't want to destroy the illusion, and we might have to go back and kind of neaten up the black a little bit with it. But what we're going to try to do is this. We're going to try to color each one of those little tiny brads. Okay? And anything else that we deem that we want this thing to have that should be golden in color. And this is arbitrary. You don't have to make it any more or less than it already is. Okay? So you do you. And like I said, we'll probably go back and we might shore it up a little bit with black. We'll see. Alright. Now, there are some on the back of this particular model. Okay? So if you want to get those two, you can. If you don't have to. Again, it's your model. You paint it how you want it. Doesn't have to be any way than you want it. The easiest way that I found to paint these is you just take a little bit of paint and you're just gonna dab it down inside. And like I said, don't worry if you make a mistake because it's gonna get covered up by other paint anyway. Okay. And when you start to kind of run out a little bit, redot, redip, redot. Okay. And then anything that we want to be gold on this, we should paint with our gold now. And I'm going to paint this little head board up here. I'm going to paint that gold. Paint the whole thing gold. Now, you can add in other colors, of course. I mean, you can paint it any color you wish. Okay, you can paint these however you want. I'm just saying that you want to paint them now. Because it'll be easier to paint now than it is later. Okay, when it's all covered with other paint and you're trying not to make mistakes, it's easier to do it this way, make a few mistakes, cover it over with black or other paints, and then come back to it. Okay? That's my recommendation. You can do it however you want. Again, it's your miniature, it's your world. You paint it how you want it. And I mean, I've seen people go all out to where they've built actual rooms for the Hero Quest game. Yeah, 3D printed walls and everything. It's spectacular, but I'm not up to that level yet. I don't have a 3D printer and I have no way of doing anything with it. Even if I did have it, I don't know that I'd be able to do anything with it. Let me see here. Some of this I may wait until after I do paint parts of it. Only because I think it might be a little easier. Now I'm going to say with miniatures like this, you don't necessarily have to paint the whole entire underside. Okay? Because people aren't going to necessarily look at it and go, you didn't paint the underside, nerd. And if they do, then you can tell them I told them to tell you, or tell you to tell them, fuck off. It's your world, you paint it how you want it. If you miss a couple, you miss a couple. It's not that big of a deal. I'm going to leave that there because I think it's going to be easier to paint some of this once we have the other paint on. And so, I believe, for right now, I think we're going to call that an episode. Okay? So, this has been Russ for Russ Plays Games. I didn't paint all of him, but there's our finished painted man. Okay? And I just want to say that, I do this to help you. Okay? It's all I've ever done it for. Okay? If it doesn't help you, then go find somebody on the internet that will. If it has helped you, I'm glad. Okay? And if it really has helped you, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you'd like to see me paint next. I know I've got a ton of figures here, and like I said before, I think I put it actually in the description of the other video. If you'd like to see sort of a video of me showing off my pile of shame, I'm more than happy to show you my pile of shame. It is gargantuan. Okay? I have a ton of miniatures that I haven't even painted yet. I've got Age of Sigmar miniatures. I've got this Reaper miniature ghost figure that I haven't painted yet. I have tons of figures around here that I haven't painted yet, okay? So if you want me to show you my pile of shame, let me know in the comments below or in the previous video. Just kind of give me a heads up. Say, hey, you know what? I would like to know what you have to paint so that if I have something that you have and I want to see how you paint it, there we go. Because I have HeroQuest figures. I have the original HeroQuest figures that I can still paint. I don't have any right here, but I still have individual HeroQuest figures that I paint. I did paint up the weapon rack finally. They're all finished pretty much. So I mean, I have a couple things that I need to, do, but I have all these figures. If you want to see me paint, let me know. Okay? So smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment below. Let me know how you've liked the stuff so far, and yeah, let me know if you want to see my pile of shame. Because I mean, I also have a lot of the sword and sorcery stuff I haven't even touched. The only 3 figures I've painted so far are Jean, Artemis, and Mist, and that's it. Okay, none of the other ones, including Lil Dharma here, haven't been painted yet. Okay, so if you want to see me paint some of these, just let me know in the comments below. And as always, we will see you on the next one.